On May 30th, 1862, United States forces occupied the railroad junction of Corinth, Mississippi, after a relatively bloodless month-long siege. Soon after, on June 6th, Memphis was also occupied by federal troops. With these strategic points in hand, the top federal commander in the West, Henry Halleck, eyed the next objective. Don Carlos Buell, commanding the Army of the Ohio, was ordered to move east and take Chattanooga, Tennessee. His route would take him through the Tennessee Valley of North Alabama, territory already nominally held by Buell's subordinate general, Ormsby McKnight Mitchell. Buell interpreted his orders as requiring him to repair the broken Memphis and Charleston Railroad as he moved east in order to act as a line of supply. However, once repaired, the railroad was constantly threatened by Confederate cavalry and lacked enough usable locomotives to be operable even where the track was intact. The thinly stretched federal garrisons became sitting ducks for Confederate raiding parties, resulting in the skirmish at Courtland on July 25th. The strategy of keeping the railroad guarded and functional greatly slowed down the Army's progress, and in the end proved to be strategically futile. On June 11, 1862, the 4 divisions of Buell's army got underway from Corinth, with McCook's division reaching Florence on June 15th. The Confederates had scuttled the bridge at Florence, so crossing the river here was a logistical challenge. Buell's chief engineer, James St. Clair Morton, described the solution. Quote, "I went to Pittsburgh Landing and Eastport, where I procured 2 suitable barges and a steamboat, of which, together with the floors, rafters, and joists of storehouses in Florence, I made a steam ferry bridge at the last named place. The bridge was capable of carrying across, at a time, about 50 loaded wagons. Each trip took 2 hours." End quote. With Morton's steam ferry, the Army began crossing on June 25, 1862. 3 of Buell's divisions, McCook's, Nelson's, Crittenden's, crossed the river at Florence and began marching to Athens, where the first troops arrived on June 27th. Wood's division crossed at Decatur, where they finished crossing on July 6th. From Athens and Decatur, the divisions continued on to Huntsville, entering northeast Alabama. Altogether, Buell's effective force numbered approximately 24,000 men. Claiming that the country in the Tennessee Valley was already too depleted to support his army, Buell paused at Huntsville to repair the railroads leading back to Nashville, which would allow him to stockpile supplies coming from as far north as the Ohio River Valley. Thwarting this endeavor was John Hunt Morgan's first Kentucky raid in the first week of July. This was followed by a surprise raid by Nathan Bedford Forrest against Murfreesboro on July 13th, which resulted in the capture of the garrison there and erased the progress made in repairing the railroad. Buell was enraged by the upset at Murfreesboro, stating, quote, "Few more disgraceful examples of neglect of duty and lack of good conduct can be found in the history of wars." End quote. The effect of these raids was that Buell ordered Nelson's division and 2 brigades of Wood's division back into Middle Tennessee to guard the rear, further thinning his effective force in the Tennessee Valley. By the time the railroads were operational on July 31st, Morgan and Forrest, with a relatively small cavalry force, were threatening the security of Buell's footing around Nashville and into Kentucky. With Buell's attention diverted, responding to these repeated stealthy cavalry raids, Confederate General Braxton Bragg moved his army by rail from Tupelo, Mississippi, and swiftly occupied Chattanooga by the last week of July. Buell wavered, feeling strategically hemmed in by the mountainous terrain around Stevenson and Battle Creek, Tennessee, and expecting to be attacked by a superior Confederate force. With supplies dwindling, and with news that Edmund Kirby Smith was moving into Kentucky from Knoxville, Buell decided to concentrate at Murfreesboro, Tennessee, and ordered the evacuation of all forces in North Alabama on August 30th, 1862. With this order, by the second week of September 1862, the Army of the Ohio left the Tennessee Valley behind, erasing all of the territorial gains made in North Alabama for the year 1862. For his failure, Buell was eventually fired as commander of the Army of the Ohio and brought before a court of inquiry. His successor, William Stark Rosecrans, will spend the better part of the next year, 1863, retaking lost ground with the goal of taking Chattanooga for the United States. In the aftermath of Buell's retreat, Corinth, Mississippi remained a stronghold of federal operations in the region throughout the year 1863. As such, northwest Alabama around the Muscle Shoals remained in the sphere of federal influence, albeit as a no-man's land, frequently crisscrossed by raids and expeditions such as Cornyn's Raid.